meziezo mananda andibata ndiwirombo ndiwike ndiwimutungamiri tenzi nditungamire anondipa runyararo anondipa rugare anetsitsi anengoni naye ndinozovimba anondipa rufaro anondipa upenyu apondaneta darukutika anondipa osimba semwana onyaratswa munganyaratse nyanza manana anomunzwa kanamoti nyarara dimwitenzi wenyanza tenzi nditungamire anondipa runyararo anondipa rugare anetsitsi anengoni naye ndinozovimba anondipa rufaro anondipa upenyu apondaneta darukutika anondipa osimba
handingafambi ndoga seiya indainonikidza yoga mubara vanhu miedzo namafungu zvondikamenisa muzhira yechikristu kurumwa netsikidzi rambira mumba zvimwe zvingauye asi ndinosimbira rutendo rwangu mamuri hakune avo neavo vanoti chinochururuka chinopwa iro dzamba rafuta richavaiko hazvingashanduki kana ndakatarira muchinjiko vanofarira kundiona muvhu asi kuwa kwangu ndiko kusimudzirwa kwangu kana namananda hangandibati namopa mukristu mate nerurimi asi ndinosimbira pamuchinjiko pachikomo chiye chekarivhari ndipo panobva simba rangu
anondipa runyararo anondipa rugare anetsitsi anengoni naye ndinozovimba anondipa rufaro anondipa upenyu apondaneta darukutika anondipa osimba apondaneta darukutika anondipa osimba apondaneta darukutika anondipa osimba.
Welcome again, everyone. We want to thank the Lord for the opportunity to sit down and discuss these pertinent issues for our time as well. And as we continue in our conversation, the last time we left it at a point where we were saying to ourselves, how does someone dream? And I mean, the wise men had made it very clear to us that businesses themselves are founded upon dreams. And conversations with many people that have been successful in business, if you listen to them, if you have the time to listen to all the successful people that you might think of, having conversations with them makes it very clear to you that the Bible is actually the source of this thinking. Because the way they studied is they studied by observing the world, all right? And then they said to themselves, what is it that I can do to solve this issue that is there? So they dreamt about a solution. These are things that had not been there. So we realized that innovations are centered around things that are, so innovations comes in different ways. They come in different ways. So here we are discussing this whole idea around dreaming. And remember what we were saying. So entrepreneurs themselves, they survive and thrive in capturing opportunities. There has to be an opportunity for someone to be able to then start a venture. And the question we're asking is, what are these opportunities? So we will talk about what we are calling entrepreneurial opportunities. And there is no better way to actually talk about this than for us to observe how God himself started this whole idea. So the children of Israel are coming from Egypt. Their time in the wilderness is done. They cross the Red Sea. They get into Canaan. So they go for some days fighting and reclaiming the land. After they've claimed the land and their leader Joshua is about to die, so he says to them, let's divide the land by lot. So God starts giving them each one a piece of land. And if you are following the thinking here, you are definitely on it now, isn't it? Because God does not ask you to do something without giving you something to use. So God wants all of these people to be self-dependent. And remember, in Israel, no one was supposed to be a dependent of the other. Of course, I mean, you would have one or two instances where you had people that were needy and that. But what we are discussing here is the big picture. And for God, the original idea for God was for everyone to be self-sustainable. All right? So God says to them, for you to be able to do this, you need the resources. So he gives them land. And you realize in this time, land is the ultimate capital. You cannot possess something better than land. So each and every one of them, and from a tribal perspective, by size, and within the tribes, by size of family, God gives them a piece of land for them to work on. And this is the opportunity that God presents for them to be able to do what they need to do. But I mean, surely you realize that some of them ended up with more cattle, more lambs, more sheep, more goats, more than others. Okay? Not because but they all started at the same place. So you realize this is how God works. So he gives us the opportunities. And the same is also there in the business world. These are what we are calling entrepreneurial opportunities. And where do they come from? These are situations in which new goods, new services, new raw materials, new markets, and new ways of organizing things are introduced through the formation of new means. When we are talking about means and ends here, we are talking about a way in which things are related. So without diving deep into the context of entrepreneurial opportunities from an academic perspective, what you are seeing here is there are situations that give rise to the need for new things. All right? They can be goods, they can be services, they can be raw materials. I mean, like you realized what happened with COVID. When the pandemic struck, there was a surge in demand for online and digital-based services. These are the opportunities that arise. And the question you're asking is, as these opportunities arise, all right, do you find ways of taking advantage of them? So you realize in business terms, there is what we call sensing and seizing. I would infuse you with a bit of a business balance here. But if you are in the business world, we call these dynamic capabilities. So we are saying someone has the ability to understand the needs of their market, okay? And then they identify ways in which those needs could be satisfied. And then they go ahead and use those ways to satisfy the needs. So this is what we are calling the sensing and the seizing of opportunities. So opportunities are always arising. And God has no shortage of giving us opportunities. All right, I mean, without being morbid in the thinking, you realize that COVID is here with us, all right? But what has happened is certain businesses, so you hear of certain businesses becoming billion-dollar businesses, Moderna, Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, AstraZeneca. These are all guys who saw the opportunity, all right? Yes, they are solving the problem of COVID, but they saw the opportunity and they took advantage of it. And we are saying where you are starting from, maybe you don't have as much capital as Pfizer. But what we are saying here is, did you see the opportunity? And that's the conversation we are having here. Do you see the opportunities? So the dream that we were talking about is not something that you imagine out of nowhere. It's inspired. Only God can give you something that has been non-existent. But for us, it's inspired. All right? You see, you observe the surroundings, circumstances, and environment. Then you see the possibility of something that people around you could consume. And you realize that some of these things are even non-existent. So when we talk about dreaming and being insane, we are saying, so when we talk about innovation also in the same context, innovation itself arises in many different ways. But we could talk about what we call radical innovation. This is starting something that was not there before, a new product, a new industry, something that was non-existent. That's radical. And sometimes we also have what is called incremental innovation. So when we talk of incremental innovation, we are saying, there is a phone that is here, but I could improve this phone so that it becomes something better. That's incremental. So you see that opportunities always arise either out of nothing, completely new, or you are looking at something that's there and you are saying, how can I improve this? And you realize that this is how businesses actually grow in the world. So there's what we call radical innovation. The businesses are going into, they are creating a completely new industry, something that has never been seen before. And they are bringing it onto the market. I would refer you back to the mobile network operation industry. By the time Econet was set up, all people knew was fixed line telephones. You're supposed to dial. There were call boxes back then. I'm sure if some are old enough to remember, you would go and put a coin into something, dial a number. The directories were there. And, I'm sure it was a thriving industry back then. But once, this is from a Zimbabwean perspective, but of course, the world was years ahead in terms of what's happening here. From a Zimbabwean perspective, these guys come onto the stage. They introduce a totally different way of doing, of actually achieving this need. People wanted to communicate. So what they were solving is they realized that people needed to communicate, but the fixed line telephone industry was limited. You needed to go to a certain place for you to be able to communicate, despite this being an improvement from the drums and smoke that we had in the past. So you realize that this is how innovation is coming, isn't it? So from drums and smoke, I'm sure the letter and the post came into the picture. Then the post was replaced by the fixed line telephone. The fixed line telephone itself was now replaced by the mobile, telephone itself. So these are industries, and this is what you call incremental, but also in the mobile telephone industry setting, this is what you call radical. These things that were not there, completely new industry, and before you knew it, this was what we are used to now. It's actually, for us, it's so normal, but it was abnormal back then. And God is teaching us very key principles here, that we need to be observant. And you realize that this is a technique that most Christians sometimes don't find themselves possessing. I remember there was a point in time, the feeding of the 5,000. So Jesus says to the disciples, get these people food. All right, I hope you remember that story. And then the disciples saying, there is nothing that we possess here that could be used to actually achieve what you are trying to do. So here is Jesus who has identified the problem, all right? And then one of the disciples there, called Andrew, says, I've seen a boy who has, 2 loaves and 5 loaves and 2 fishes. And as he does that, Jesus uses what Andrew had identified to actually solve a problem. So I want to think this is the same concept that you find in business as well. You identify an opportunity, you identify things that could possibly be done. This is through dreaming. Then God enables you to implement this dream, which is exactly the same concept you are seeing here. Jesus tells them that there is this situation that is arisen. This is an opportunity, in my view. And then Andrew sees someone with loaves, all right? And then he tells Jesus who uses the same loaves to solve the problem. So this is exactly the same concept that you find yourself, exposed to as these things play out. And it says, here, one of the things that's very critical as we look at dreaming, it says, for you to be able to dream, you need to be having the information. So investigating opportunities in entrepreneurship is all hinged around information. It's an information play. How do you see the information? How do you process it? What do you do after you have observed the information? And information is gathered by you. So as you move around, you always see. There are so many situations that face people on a daily basis. And I'm sure you have thought about them, you have seen them, and it is that the difference between a successful entrepreneur and one who is not successful is how they use the information. And you know, some scholars, if you were to ask them around this whole idea of processing information to be able to take advantage of entrepreneurial opportunities, they will tell you that there are two ways why others are successful and others are not when it comes to identifying exploitable opportunities. All right, so I'm introducing another aspect there of opportunities that are exploitable. We are simply saying this is the ability to take advantage of the opportunity, create a solution for that particular issue, and then ultimately, you know, sell the solution in return for profits, of course. So this is, I mean, that's the whole idea of business. Anyway, so it says someone might be possessing information. So you realize this is how we are faced with situations on a daily basis. And these are things that happen, they start from small communities. I mean, even in your church setup, you would realize that I always observe this, mostly women tend to exhibit these tendencies a lot. When they start selling things, you know, they are quick to know that there is a Tupperware being sold in this particular area. Then they realize that there are women who need Tupperware in their homes. They go take the Tupperware. So this is like, it's at a small scale, that's how it is, okay? But big picture issues are also hinged around the same things. What have you seen that you could use to solve something that you are seeing now, okay? So you realize that we always find ourselves in these circumstances where there is a problem. But these problems looks something that can be addressed in a certain way, something that you have observed before, or you could find a new way of actually doing this, and ultimately you find yourself there. So he says, you know, if you possess prior information about something, it makes it easy for you to identify an opportunity. All right. If you know that, you know, digital technologies can be used to solve problems today for businesses, if you meet a business that is looking for a solution, then your understanding and knowledge of the digital issues then become the solution. So this is how it works. Sometimes you also find that there are some people who have the cognitive abilities to just, you know, process the information and value. These are the people who dream out of the ordinary. So you could either, you know, innovate in a way where you are starting something new, all right, or you are improving on what's existing, or you could actually improve a process. So this come in different levels now, isn't it? So you are looking at industries, you are looking at processes within industries, and you are looking at products that people can use in a particular industry. And as we look at it all, the question we are asking is, this level of innovation that allows people to start ventures that will be able to solve our problems, where does it come from? All right. Where does it come from? And embedded in all the things that we do, we are left with that verse that we started with. So God says, you know, through the wise men, you know, business itself arises out of the ability to dream. We need to be able to dream. And, you know, the next question then we want to be able to answer for ourselves is, I have dreamed, I have seen opportunities. All right. So what are the first steps towards actually implementing, solving a problem that I have identified? So you realize that what we are talking about here, these are not small business kind of concepts. We are talking about things that allow you to ultimately be there. And as we have our next conversations that follow, we are then saying to ourselves, what does it take to start a venture, the conversion of ideas, opportunities and dreams into the actual venture itself. So I hope you tune in next time as we have this conversation, as we process what it takes to be the successful business person that you are supposed to be.
The master is awaiting a rich reward to give. The fields be ripe and ready, the laborers are few. To the highways and the byways, an angel has been assigned, sealing all the servants who will heed to the call. It's a time to search the heart, if in God it still believes. It's a time to search the soul, if the truth it can obey. Proclaiming in a loud voice, probation is closing. The angel of mercy making the last call. The everlasting gospel to everyone it must be preached. To towns, tribes, and nations, everywhere we must reach, reviving and reforming the backslidden and the lost. Lead them to a Savior, they are guilty stains to cleanse. It's a time to search the heart, if in God it still believes. It's a time to search the soul, if the truth it can obey. Proclaiming in a loud voice, probation is closing. The angel of mercy making the last call. The good news of salvation is power to holiness, dispelling all darkness. It sets the captives free, compelling with compassion the bruised and distressed. Bring them to a kingdom that is free of grief and shame. It is the time to search the heart, if in God is still believed. It is the time to search the soul, if the truth it can obey. Proclaiming in a loud voice, probation is closing. The angel of mercy making the last call. It is the time to search the heart, if in God is still believed. It is the time to search the soul, if the truth it can obey. Proclaiming in a loud voice, probation is closing. The angel of mercy making the last call. It is the time to search the heart, if in God is still believed. It is the time to search the soul, if the truth it can obey. Proclaiming in a loud voice, probation is closing. The angel of mercy making the last call.